Story 1: The Journey into Darkness. In a world cloaked in the inky shroud of night, three daring friends, Alex, Emma, and Liam, embarked on an adventure that would forever change their lives. Nestled at the heart of a dense forest near the imposing mountains stood an abandoned mine, a place rumored to be haunted by the tormented spirits of miners who had met a grisly fate. Ignoring the ominous stories, the trio, driven by curiosity, trekked deep into the woods, guided only by the dim glow of their lanterns. The forest was dense, the trees casting elongated shadows that danced eerily in the moonlight. As they ventured deeper, the path grew narrower and the air colder, whispering tales of forgotten terrors. Rustling leaves, the occasional distant hoot of an owl, and the eerie silence of the woods created a symphony of unease. Alex, the most skeptical of the group, attempted to mask his fear with humor, cracking jokes to alleviate the growing tension. Finally, the mine's entrance emerged from the darkness like a gaping maw. The wooden beams supporting the entrance were warped and weathered, as if the mine had been devoured by time itself. The wind whistled through the openings, producing mournful tunes that sent shivers down their spines. Taking a collective breath, the friends stepped into the mine, their lanterns casting feeble beams of light into the abyss. The air was heavy with an earthy scent, and the walls seemed to close in on them as they descended deeper into the mine's belly. Every step echoed, creating an eerie symphony of footfalls that reverberated through the tunnels like whispers of the past. As they explored, they discovered relics of the mine's history: rusted pickaxes, discarded helmets, and broken-down carts. The walls were adorned with faded drawings, telling the story of the miners' lives through their intricate sketches. But the deeper they went, the more the mine seemed to transform. Shadows danced at the edges of their vision, and whispers seemed to grow louder, blending with the sound of their own breathing. With every step, their lanterns flickered, casting fleeting shadows that danced in macabre unison. Emma, the most intuitive of the group, couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Liam, normally the fearless one, found his heart racing, a gnawing dread clawing at his insides. Alex's bravado wavered, his jokes now faltering as they journeyed deeper into the heart of the mine's darkness. Suddenly, a voice, faint and distorted, echoed through the tunnel, sending their hearts into overdrive. "Leave, before too late," it hissed, its source impossible to pinpoint. Emma's grip tightened on her lantern as the walls seemed to close in further, the very air growing colder and heavier. Time lost its meaning in the endless labyrinth of tunnels. Their lanterns now flickered more frequently, their beams feeble against the encroaching darkness. Panic gnawed at their minds, and their whispers to one another were laced with hysteria. Every turn led them deeper into the mine's clutches, and the walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. They stumbled upon a chamber unlike the others, a space shrouded in an otherworldly gloom. The air was thick with an oppressive dread, and the walls were adorned with eerie symbols that seemed to writhe and twist. The whispers had grown into anguished cries, voices intertwining in a cacophonous chorus of torment. As the friends stood in the chamber, their lanterns flickered one final time before dying out, plunging them into complete darkness. Fear gripped them like a vice, their breaths quick and shallow. Suddenly, a pale light emanated from the center of the chamber, casting a ghostly glow that revealed a spectral figure, a miner, his form translucent, his eyes hollow voids. The miner's voice, a chorus of countless souls, spoke, recounting tales of suffering and tragedy. They spoke of greed that led to disaster, of lives lost and hopes shattered. The trio listened in horror, unable to move, their minds assaulted by the weight of the past. As the miner's voice grew louder, the chamber seemed to close in on them, walls of despair converging from all sides. But within the depths of their terror, a glimmer of determination ignited. With trembling hands, they reached for each other, forming a bond stronger than fear itself. Liam, drawing upon his courage, spoke to the apparition, his voice quivering but resolute. "We hear your pain, and we acknowledge the suffering that transpired here. But we are not the ones responsible. Let us go, and we will share your story with the world so that your souls can find peace." The chamber trembled, the miner's form flickering before gradually fading away. The darkness began to recede, and the walls seemed to retreat, releasing their grip on the trio. In the faint light, they found their way back to the entrance, emerging from the mine as the first rays of dawn painted the horizon. The friends shared their harrowing experience with the world, using their voices to give voice to the tormented spirits of the mine. As time passed, the stories of the haunted mine spread far and wide, inspiring countless others to honor the past and remember the lives lost to greed and neglect. The forest and the mountains still stand, but the abandoned mine remains a reminder of the depths of human folly and the enduring echoes of tragedy. And whenever the wind whistles through the trees, carrying with it the faintest echo of a whisper, the memories of that fateful night come rushing back, a chilling reminder that the past is never truly forgotten. Story 2. A chilling arrival next door. Nestled at the outskirts of a quaint town, the house at 34 Briarwood Lane cast an eerie shadow. It was a decaying relic from another time, its windows perpetually curtained, and its garden overgrown with twisted vines. No one had lived there for years, until one fateful day, a figure emerged from the darkness and took residence. Thomas Blackwood, as he introduced himself, had an aura that sent shivers down spines. Tall and gaunt, his sunken eyes were hidden behind round, tinted glasses. His wardrobe consisted of monochromatic suits, and a wide-brimmed hat always rested atop his head, casting his features in perpetual shadow. The neighbors watched in trepidation as he moved in, accompanied by no belongings except for a small, locked suitcase. Whispers spread throughout the town. Stories of his past were wild and speculative. Some said he was a recluse, while others believed him to be a former scientist conducting dangerous experiments. As weeks turned into months, unsettling occurrences began to unfold around Thomas Blackwood's abode. The wind carried whispers of strange noises echoing from his house at night, eerie whispers, echoing cries, and the distant ring of unsettling laughter. The garden seemed to writhe with unseen life, as if the plants themselves recoiled from his touch. Local pets disappeared without a trace, their owners fearing the worst. Even the bravest souls avoided walking past the house after sunset, as tales of ghostly apparitions began to circulate. Children dared each other to peek through the windows, claiming to see flickering candlelight and shadowy silhouettes that moved with unnatural fluidity. One moonlit night, a daring group of youngsters decided to investigate further. Armed with flashlights, they tiptoed through the overgrown garden, making their way to the windows of the enigmatic house. Inside, they witnessed Thomas Blackwood engaged in a ritual that chilled their very souls. In a dimly lit room adorned with occult symbols, Thomas stood before an altar. His hands glided over peculiar objects, feathers, bones, and vials filled with unknown substances. The air was thick with an otherworldly energy as he chanted in a language unfamiliar to their ears. They watched his shadows seem to coalesce around him, swaying in time with his incantations. As the days grew shorter and the nights colder, the town's fear deepened. It was clear that Thomas Blackwood was no ordinary neighbor. He was entwined with dark forces that defy comprehension. Those who dared to investigate him further found a trail of cryptic symbols leading to a hidden basement beneath his house. Gathering their courage, a small group of townsfolk ventured into the depths beneath 34 Briarwood Lane. There, they discovered a labyrinthine network of tunnels, each adorned with morbid symbols and dripping with an unsettling moisture. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the walls seemed to pulse with an ancient malevolence. At the heart of the maze, they found Thomas Blackwood engaged in a ritual of unimaginable horror. His chants had grown louder, and the shadows around him swirled with a sinister intensity. As he raised a knife above a grotesque altar, a portal of darkness opened before him, emanating a bone-chilling cold that sucked the warmth from the air. Fear and determination propelled the townspeople into action. They confronted Thomas, their voices shaking but resolute. The enigmatic figure turned to them, his eyes gleaming with a chilling mirth. He revealed his true nature, a practitioner of ancient and forbidden magic, a collector of souls for power beyond mortal comprehension. A desperate struggle ensued, with the group of townsfolk using their combined strength to break the ritual's hold. The portal wavered, and with one final push, they managed to disrupt the flow of dark energy. Thomas Blackwood's face twisted into a mask of rage as the portal collapsed in on itself, pulling him into the abyss. The basement trembled and groaned as the arcane energy was released. The symbols etched into the walls faded away, and the tunnels crumbled into ruin. The group of survivors escaped the collapsing labyrinth just in time, their faces marked with sweat and terror. With Thomas Blackwood's disappearance, the house at 34 Briarwood Lane stood empty once again. The twisted vines slowly receded, and the town began to heal from the ordeal. But the memory of the enigmatic figure lingered, a haunting reminder that darkness could reside even in the most seemingly ordinary places. Years passed, and the tales of Thomas Blackwood transformed into urban legends. Some believed he had been consumed by the very forces he sought to control, while others whispered that he had found a way to transcend mortality, waiting for the right moment to return. The story of the creepy guy living next door became a chilling cautionary tale, a reminder that the line between the mundane and the supernatural was thinner than anyone could have ever imagined. And so, the town of Briarwood Lane remained forever haunted by the enigma that once dwelled amongst them. Story 3: Shadows of Obsession, the adult film star. The city's neon lights cast eerie glows across the damp streets as Jenna Reed, a renowned adult film star, stepped out of a glamorous party. The night air was thick with an unsettling tension, making her instinctively clutch her coat tighter around her slender frame. Jenna knew the price of fame all too well, but tonight, something felt different. With each echoing footstep, her heart quickened. She had heard whispers about fans who crossed the line, but she never believed she'd be their target. As she walked briskly, her heels clicking against the pavement, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. A chill raced down her spine, and she stole quick glances behind her, only to find empty sidewalks and cold, misty air. Reaching her sleek black car, Jenna's breath hitched as she noticed a single red rose lying on the windshield. Confusion battled with alarm within her, but before she could react, a strange noise echoed from the shadows. Her pulse raced as she locked herself in the car and peered into the obscurity, her heart pounding in her chest like a desperate plea for escape. Days turned into weeks, and Jenna's unease deepened. The Crimson Rose incident was just the beginning. Anonymous gifts began to arrive at her doorstep, lavish bouquets, handwritten notes professing admiration that turned increasingly sinister. She reported the incidents to the police, but without concrete evidence, they could do little more than increase patrols around her neighborhood. Jenna's work began to suffer. Her scenes, once filled with passion and confidence, now bore traces of fear that she couldn't conceal. As this situation escalated, her co-stars grew concerned, and the once thriving set became a somber reminder of her crumbling sense of safety. One evening, as she wrapped up a particularly difficult shoot, Jenna received a call. An icy voice whispered threats, detailing her every movement over the past week. Her blood turned to ice, and she was paralyzed with terror. The stalker was watching her, studying her every move, and leaving her vulnerable in her own life. Jenna's world spiraled into a nightmarish abyss. Every shadow seemed to hold hidden eyes, every unfamiliar face became a potential threat. Sleep became elusive as her dreams were plagued by a haunting figure, a faceless phantom that pursued her relentlessly. Desperation led her to hire a private investigator. Armed with determination, they delved into her past, digging for any potential leads. Jenna's life story was laid bare, a mix of triumphs and vulnerabilities. As they pieced together the puzzle, an unsettling connection emerged. Someone from her past, someone who had seemingly vanished, was resurfacing. As the investigator continued to dig, they unearthed an old classmate named Alex Mercer. An introverted student with an intense fascination for Jenna, he had been infatuated with her even before her fame. He had disappeared from their lives after graduation, leaving behind only a faint trail of unfulfilled dreams. With a newfound focus, Jenna and the investigator began to scrutinize Alex's past. His obsession with her had grown from innocent admiration to something far more sinister. They discovered hidden diaries filled with disturbing fantasies, details of her daily life, and the eerie progression of his fixation over the years. Their investigation took them deeper into the city's underbelly, following obscure leads that hinted at Alex's presence. It was a stormy night when they finally uncovered the truth, a rundown apartment building, its halls cloaked in shadows, where Alex had been silently orchestrating his twisted game. Inside, the tension was palpable. Jenna's heart hammered against her chest as they navigated dimly lit corridors, the distant echo of their footsteps mingling with her rapid breaths. They reached the end of a hallway, and before them stood a cracked door, behind which lay the culmination of their journey. With a deep breath, Jenna pushed the door open, revealing a dimly lit room illuminated by the flickering glow of a computer screen. There, surrounded by photographs of Jenna in various stages of her life, sat Alex Mercer. His eyes were wild, his face contorted with a mixture of elation and madness. The confrontation was electric, charged with emotions that had simmered for years. Alex's voice oscillated between soft whispers of adoration and chilling threats. He was trapped in a world of delusion where Jenna was the object of his desires, the embodiment of his dreams and nightmares. As the police closed in, Alex's grasp on reality wavered. In his deranged mind, Jenna was both a savior and a tormentor. His obsession had transformed him into a puppet, dancing to the strings of a puppeteer only he could see. Jenna stood her ground, her fear replaced by a fierce determination to reclaim her life. She faced her stalker, her voice unwavering as she demanded answers, seeking closure. Slowly, the truth began to surface, the loneliness that had consumed Alex, the isolation that had fed his obsession, and the journey that had led him down a path of no return. The trial that followed was a whirlwind of emotions. Alex Mercer was deemed mentally unstable and was institutionalized, his life forever confined within the walls of a psychiatric facility. Jenna found solace in the support of friends and colleagues, rebuilding her shattered sense of security. Though the scars of the ordeal would never fully fade, Jenna emerged stronger, determined to rewrite her narrative. The incident had left her with a heightened sense of vulnerability, but also with a newfound resilience. The shadows that had once haunted her were slowly replaced by the light of her own strength, illuminating the path to a future untainted by fear. Story 4: Farmhouse Basement Terror. In the heart of the countryside stood an old farmhouse, its time-worn facade bearing witness to a century of secrets. Nestled beneath a canopy of gnarled trees, the structure exuded an aura of mystery that sent shivers down the spines of those who dared to approach. The townsfolk whispered of unexplained happenings, eerie noises, and an unmistakable malevolence lurking within its walls. As twilight settled over the land, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers towards the farmhouse, a chill breeze rustled through the overgrown grass. The air was thick with unease, and the house itself seemed to creak in response to the impending darkness. The Johnson family, new to the area and oblivious to the stories, had recently moved in, drawn to the rustic charm of the old dwelling. Their curiosity piqued, the Johnsons began to explore their new home. The creaky wooden floors carried the weight of generations as they traversed the corridors, each step echoing like a mournful sigh. In the basement, a heavy door concealed the abyss below, a yawning chasm that seemed to swallow all light. The smell of damp earth and decay clung to the air, and a sense of dread gnawed at the edges of their consciousness. Days turned into nights, and the Johnsons settled into their routine. Yet, even in the brightness of day, odd occurrences became frequent visitors. Objects shifted without explanation, strange whispers floated through the rooms, and the temperature plummeted in isolated pockets of the house. The family dismissed these as mere coincidences, attributing them to the quirks of an old building. But the veil of skepticism began to lift when young Emily Johnson started talking to an unseen presence. She spoke of a shadowy figure that dwelled in the basement, a friend she had lovingly named Mr. Scratch. Her parents chalked it up to an overactive imagination, comforting her with the notion that he was just a product of her creativity. One fateful night, as a storm unleashed its fury outside, the family was awakened by a series of chilling shrieks that seemed to emanate from the basement. Emily's eyes were wide with terror as she insisted that Mr. Scratch was in danger. Despite their apprehension, her parents gathered the courage to descend into the depths, armed with flashlights and trembling resolve. The basement was a realm of shadows, the feeble beams of light barely denting the oppressive darkness. As they moved forward, the temperature dropped drastically, breaths visible in the icy air. Suddenly, a voice echoed in the abyss, an unsettling blend of whispers and screams that seemed to come from all directions at once. Emily clung to her parents, tears streaking down her cheeks. And then they saw him, a figure, barely discernible in the obscurity. Mr. Scratch materialized like a specter, his form shifting and indistinct. Emily's pleas turned into anguished cries as she begged her parents to save her friend. Fear and compassion tugged at their hearts, torn between rescuing their daughter from an unseen danger and acknowledging the very presence they had denied. In an instant, the basement seemed to awaken, a malevolent force surging from the shadows. The air grew frigid, the walls closing in with an almost sentient intent. Their flashlights flickered and died, plunging them into an abyss of total darkness. Panic gripped their hearts as the presence loomed closer, a sinister aura pressing against their very souls. Emily's screams pierced the void as the malevolent force seized her parents, their bodies suspended in midair, paralyzed by an invisible grip. Desperation fueled their struggle, but it was a futile battle against an ancient darkness that thrived on fear. Mr. Scratch, now a swirling maelstrom of shadows, watched with hollow eyes as their defiance crumbled. In the days that followed, the Johnsons' farmhouse stood as a stark reminder of the darkness that dwelled beneath. It became a place shunned by the villagers, its windows boarded, its doors locked with chains. The story of the family's disappearance spread like wildfire, a chilling tale of a sinister force that had claimed them, dragging them into the depths of an otherworldly abyss. The farmhouse, once a beacon of rustic charm, now stood as a monument to terror, a place where the veil between the mortal realm and the unknown had been irrevocably torn. The whispers of Mr. Scratch echoed through the years, a haunting refrain that reminded all who heard it of the malevolent abyss that lay beneath the surface of the world, waiting for the next curious soul to succumb to its insidious grasp. Final story: the Grave Digger's Descent. In the heart of a desolate town nestled between dark forests and mist-shrouded hills lay the forgotten cemetery of Murville. Its name whispered dread, its tombstones loomed like sentinels guarding the secrets of the dead. Few dared to venture near it, especially after twilight, for tales of eerie happenings and unexplained disappearances had woven themselves into the fabric of local legend. Amid this grim landscape, there toiled a man named Elias Thorne, a grave digger by trade. His gaunt frame, perpetually draped in tattered clothing, seemed to merge seamlessly with the somber atmosphere. Elias was a man of few words, haunted by his past and shackled to the present by necessity. The cemetery was his nightly domain, a place where he faced his solitude and reckoned with the unknown. One evening, as the setting sun cast long, chilling shadows across the graveyard, Elias commenced his work. With a rusty shovel in hand, he began to dig into the earth, each clump of dirt echoing like a dirge in the silence. The moon hung low, casting an otherworldly glow that seemed to intensify the eerie beauty of the tombstones. As Elias dug deeper into the soil, a shiver crept down his spine. A faint whisper, like a sigh carried on the wind, brushed against his ears. Startled, he glanced around, finding nothing but the rustling of leaves and the moonlight filtering through the branches. He shook his head, attributing it to his frayed nerves, and continued his work. With every shovel of dirt he displaced, the whispers grew louder, more distinct. They formed a symphony of murmurs, indistinct yet urgent, as though the very earth he was disturbing held untold stories that longed to be heard. His heartbeat quickened as the shadows around him seemed to writhe, coalescing into vague shapes that danced at the edges of his vision. Elias tried to dismiss the bizarre phenomenon, chalking it up to fatigue or his mind playing tricks. But when he looked down into the hole he had dug, his breath caught in his throat. Emerging from the earth were skeletal fingers, reaching upward as if clawing their way to freedom. His scream echoed through the graveyard, mingling with the cacophony of whispers that now seemed to emanate from the very ground itself. Elias stumbled back, his eyes wide with terror. He watched in disbelief as the skeletal fingers transformed into a skeletal hand, then an entire arm, and finally, the visage of a woman emerged from the ground. She was clad in tattered garments, her hair matted and soil-stained. Her eyes were hollow sockets that bore into Elias's soul with a mixture of sadness and longing. "Help me," her voice echoed in his mind, a plea that sent shivers down his spine. "Release me from this wretched place." Elias's rationality fought against his fear, and he realized he had to uncover the truth behind this haunting. Guided by equal parts curiosity and dread, he resumed digging, unearthing more of the woman's form. With each shovelful of dirt, her figure became clearer, and her spectral features seemed to grow less tormented. As he dug, the woman's tale unfurled in his mind like a ghostly tapestry. She had been a victim of betrayal and cruelty in life, and her body had been hidden away in an unmarked grave. Her restless spirit had been trapped, her voice unheard, her story untold. Elias, driven by empathy and an inexplicable connection, vowed to free her from her earthly prison. Elias worked tirelessly through the night, the whispers growing louder and more fervent with each passing moment. The moon waned, and the night deepened, as if time itself were being manipulated by the forces at play. With a final shovelful of earth, Elias uncovered the woman's entire form, and her presence seemed to expand, casting an ethereal glow that illuminated the darkness around them. The whispers that once haunted him now formed words, telling tales of tragedy, betrayal, and injustice that had befallen many souls laid to rest in Myrtville Cemetery. These were the stories of those long forgotten, stories that craved release from the confines of forgotten graves. Elias became their conduit, their voice in the world of the living. With a surge of energy that defied explanation, Elias joined hands with the spectral woman. The ground trembled, and the tombstones quivered as the earth itself seemed to recoil from the overwhelming power that was unleashed. A blinding light engulfed the graveyard, banishing the shadows and revealing the stories that had been hidden for generations. In the midst of the dazzling brilliance, the spirits of the forgotten souls materialized, their forms taking shape around the cemetery. Their anguish and bitterness transformed into ethereal tendrils that spiraled toward the sky, dissipating into the night like smoke. With each release, a gentle peace settled upon the graveyard, and the restless whispers faded into silence. The spectral woman turned to Elias, her hollow eyes now softened with gratitude. "Thank you, kind soul. You have given us the chance to be heard, to find closure, and to finally rest in peace." Elias nodded, a weight lifted from his heart as the stories that had haunted him for so long found their resolution. The graveyard, once a place of dread, was now suffused with a tranquility that could only be described as divine. As the first light of dawn began to pierce the horizon, Elias gazed upon the transformed cemetery, knowing that he had played a pivotal role in bringing solace to the departed. From that night forward, Myrtville Cemetery bore witness to no more unexplained disappearances or eerie occurrences. The town, once shrouded in superstition, embraced a newfound serenity, unaware of the darkness that had once held sway. Elias Thorne, the grave digger, continued to tend to the resting place of those who had passed, his heart at peace and his soul forever connected to the whispered shadows of midnight. If you enjoyed these stories, please give a like and subscribe for more haunting stories. And remember, you never know what might be standing behind you watching your every move.